We're talking today with Judge Candy Dale, a co-recipient of the Idaho State Bar's Distinguished Jurist Award for 2022. My name is Lori Thompson. I came to know Judge Dale in 2001, back when you were then Candy Dale. And I'd always wanted to work for Judge Dale, and it took me a few years to convince her to do that, but I did talk her into hiring me as her law clerk in 2019, which it's been my privilege to serve as your law clerk. So take us through your work in private practice from starting out with transactional work. How did you become a trial attorney?
Well, again, I realized fairly promptly as I started that maybe transactional law wasn't my forte or my interest area. And around that same point in time, both Dick Fields and Rich Hall, who were my mentors and senior partners at the firm, asked me if I would work on cases primarily involving medical malpractice defense. And I was interested in that, and I did that work. And as more work came into the firm, more work came to me to assist both of those lawyers and others. And so that led me to the trial attorney path. And I was able to learn and be mentored by, these two male attorneys who are recognized to this day as titans in the legal community and amazing trial attorneys.
So tell us about some of your most memorable or favorite cases that you've had since you've been on the bench.
This plaintiff had come to the United States illegally and was a farm worker in California. She was taken by her employer to the INS, where she was able to get a green card and be part of a farm amnesty program that existed. I think this was in the early 80s. She was told by the INS officials who took her green card that there was an issue with her green card after all these many years. And the issue was that there was another person with the same name who had her same I number, her same number in the system. And so things progressed to where the INS was actually considering charging her with fraud and other matters, but it was clear that it was her fingerprint and her photo and with her I-9 number on her green card that she presented for renewal. So she had counsel. They filed a lawsuit, and I drew the lawsuit, randomly assigned to me. But making it short was I ruled that the INS had made a mistake, and I also ruled that they had made more than one mistake along the way, and one of the mistakes was giving a green card with the same I number to people with a similar name. Going forward, about 6 months later, I was presiding over a naturalization ceremony and looked at the list of petitioners, and I recognized the plaintiff's name at the end of the list and looked out in the group and realized it was the plaintiff who was there as a petitioner because she's had, since the time that she got her green card renewed, had taken all the steps to be naturalized as a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure she realized it at the same time I did, but I know her family did because she had adult members of her family there with her. And when she came through the line, so to speak, to receive her certificate, it was a moment that I think is extremely unique in any judge's life, where I was able to reach out and hug this person who had actually received probably the greatest, wasn't a gift, but the greatest accomplishment in her life. And that wasn't winning the lawsuit. That was becoming a U.S. citizen.
So have there been people along the way who have influenced or encouraged you in your career?
There have been several, of course, and I mention Rich Hall all the time, but that was because of the closest working relationship I had with another lawyer until I went on the bench. Of course, here on the bench, Michael Williams first comes to mind, in part because I was his successor, and I was not his replacement because no one could replace him. Also, of course, Judge Lodge and Judge Windmill and Judge Boyle. And then shortly after I was appointed and started in my position, 6 months later, Judge Bush joined the then team. I can't leave out, and I won't leave out my husband, because I met my husband in law school, so he's been along for this ride all 40 years, and he's been an incredible support, and even during times when he needed the support from me for his own career. But he's been incredible, and we were able to have a family.
So you mentioned your husband Jim and family, and that they've been along for the ride for you, but both you and Jim are highly successful attorneys, and yet your daughter did not go to law school. Why is that?
Well, first off, you'd have to ask her. But from my perspective, it comes from early days when she was asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she would say she wasn't sure, but she would promptly say, "Not a lawyer." Again, you'd have to ask her exactly why not. But the good news is she went on to be to college and med school, and is just now finishing her training in the medical field, and is a successful doctor.
How do you think your role as a judge and as a woman on the federal bench, or the first woman on the federal bench, influenced future generations?
I'd like to believe that it has, in the sense that I made mention to Sandra Day O'Connor becoming the first, when she became the first woman on the United States Supreme Court, and then there have been others that followed. So to be able to see other women accomplishing not only their dream, but accomplishing a dream that you might have, or an aspiration that you might have, or maybe it becomes a goal later in your career as a lawyer. If I had been able to create a presence and a place on the bench that other women and men look to and say, "I can do that," then I do think that that is the positive influence that I brought to bear.
Were there any funny moments for you on the bench?
Was getting prepared for an arraignment, and also a detention hearing, meaning to determine whether the defendant was going to stay in custody or was going to be released to the community. After the marshals came and talked to me, first the marshals came and talked to me and said, "Judge, we have an individual who is in pain and is right now in a wheelchair and is suffering from back pain, and he's asking to lie on the floor during the arraignment because that's how his back pain is relieved." And so they were trying to get permission from me to have him lay on the floor during the arraignment in my courtroom. And I said, "Well, okay, as long as we can put him in a position where he can see me, and also I can, he can hear me, and also I can see him and hear him." And his attorney would be there. And I said, "Is he okay in the sense of making sure he wasn't on too many pain relievers, right?" So my courtroom deputy took me to the back of the courtroom before I was to enter, and she said, "I understand you've cleared this, but just to be prepared, Mr. So-and-so is laying on the floor." We moved the microphone closer to him off the bench. She said, "But he's propped his head up, and we don't have a pillow, so he's using a plastic garbage can that we had in the courtroom, because that was the only thing that she could find. And so I said to the courtroom deputy, it's probably best not to say, all right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I want to thank the members of the Idaho State Bar for this award, and also for allowing me the opportunity to reflect on the past 40 years and all of the support that I've received all over these years from each and every one of the members of the bar. So thank you.